The former Public Services Minister fires back at the government. The government urges nationwide discourse on marital rape, and the country wins the Traveler's Choice Award. Good evening, everyone. I'm Leah Cooper with your JCN News for this Friday, November 19th. Claims made by Minister of State for Public Service Pia Glover-Roll regarding the former minister-led administration hiring up to and even after the general elections are untrue and cannot be substantiated, and that according to former Minister of Public Service Marital Roll, who fired back at those claims on Thursday evening. During the Office of the Prime Minister's weekly press briefing on Wednesday, Mrs. Glover-Roll said that during her assessment of the public service since coming into office, it was discovered that individuals were hired into the public service on the day of the election and even days after the election when the government had already changed. Asked to respond to that claim at the Free National Movement headquarters last evening, the former minister condemned the statement made by Minister Glover-Roll and categorically denied that persons were hired during the period in question.
I could bet you, and I'll go on record on saying this, what the minister would find is the majority of persons who have been promoted come from an exercise that was done by the PLP in 2017. But because promotions had to be delayed, we just thought to bring that exercise forward this year.
In a statement issued by the former parliamentarian, he states that unlike the PLP, though, the FNM did not make a spectacle of or sought to seek to embarrass these young individuals, many of whom were professionals in the Ministry of Finance and Inland Revenue in particular. He went on to state that the FNM did not terminate or threaten to terminate anyone, adding that the most egregious statement by the minister was that many of the individuals hired are at home and have nothing to do and would consequently be terminated.
The minister was reflecting on what the PLP did in 2017. What the minister knows and what she had at the ministry is official letters for every single person that we hired. She could look on the dates of the letters. Yeah. And confirm when these persons were hired.
Mr. Roll also noted in his statement that 10 persons, not 80, have been signing into the Ministry of Public Service, and then they have not been properly placed because they were required to be vaccinated because of the agency where they were assigned for consideration, adding that the minister was perhaps referring to the 20 persons in Grand Bahama that were directed to stay home even though official letters of employment for those individuals were received by the Office of the Prime Minister and the Public Service before elections took place. He further noted that this action by the Minister of the Public Service is a disgraceful act of victimization of innocent Bahamians and urges the PLP to immediately stop this practice and have these Bahamians return to work. In addressing the backlog in the 4-year promotions, he says that when the Free National Movement came into power in 2017, they were greeted with several issues, among them being Hurricane Dorian and the COVID-19 pandemic.
Moreover, it is totally unacceptable for the minister to drag into the public domain the status of these ordinary Bahamians, primarily young Bahamians, who only ask government for a job and an opportunity.
Mr. Roll notes that it is both refreshing and interesting to hear the Minister of State in her briefing to the media acknowledge the policy of the FNM to confirm individuals to permanent positions who demonstrate professionalism and quality service delivery once they were hired in the 52 weeks program. As the coronavirus continues to affect every country around the world, the Pan American Health Organization warning a repercussion has arisen due to the ongoing pandemic, and that is antimicrobial resistance. Antimicrobial resistance threatens the effective prevention and treatment of an ever-increasing range of infections caused by bacteria, parasites, virus, and fungi. Director of PAHO, Dr. Carissa Etienne, gives us more details.
Throughout this pandemic, we have seen the use of antimicrobials rise at unprecedented levels with potentially serious consequences for years to come. Data from hospital settings in the region shows that 90 to 100% of hospitalized patients were given an antimicrobial as part of their COVID treatment, while only 7% of these patients had a secondary infection that required the use of these drugs. Antimicrobials are crucial, life-saving drugs, but they must be used responsibly since bacteria can develop resistance and render these drugs ineffective over time.
Dr. Etienne says this is what healthcare professionals are seeing thanks to the overuse and misuse of antibiotics and other antimicrobials. She warns that we are at risk of losing the drugs we use to treat common infections and that a number of countries such as Argentina, Uruguay, Ecuador, Guatemala, and Paraguay are reporting surges in drug-resistant infections.
Antimicrobials have also been misused outside of hospital settings. Drugs such as ivermectin, azithromycin, and chloroquine were broadly used as unproven treatments, even after we had strong evidence that they had no benefit to COVID patients. Health professionals everywhere should practice responsible use of antimicrobials and to prescribe antibiotics only when needed, because misusing these drugs is harmful to patients.
To help preserve the power of antimicrobials, Dr. Etienne advises that countries need better surveillance, better stewardship, and better drugs. She encourages all countries to leverage laboratory networks to track antimicrobial resistance for the foreseeable future. The countdown is on for the Free National Movement's one-day leadership convention set for November 27th, when members of the FNM caucus will vote for either Central Grand Bahama MP Iram Lewis, Marcos City MP Michael Pintard, or East Grand Bahama MP Kwesi Thompson, all of whom have pledged to unify the party as its sixth leader. According to FNM executives, as of yesterday, November 18th at 5 p.m., the nomination process has closed. Here's Chairman of the FNM, Carl Kummer.
October 19th, nominations were open for the position of leader. 3 nominees expressed their interest in the race. The Southern Council voted and agreed to a one-day convention on the 27th of November at Holy Trinity Activity Center, beginning at 9 a.m. through 2 p.m. At the end of the counting process, the winner of the election process for the leader will be announced and will make his first official speech to our party members and the nation at large.
Now, according to the FNM's treasurer, Dwight Sawyer, this one-day convention will cost the party's bank just under $100,000, and that's inclusive of airfare, travel, room and board, and grand transportation for delegates coming from the Family Islands. The FNM will hold a 3-day convention next February when all of the other leadership positions will be contested. That said, Jcn News spoke with the party's deputy leader, K. Peters Turnquest, to find out if he plans on running for any of the other positions at the party's general convention. He says that he's not made up his mind just yet, but he's considering it. Now, the one-day convention set for Saturday is the first since 2016. The former deputy prime minister shared what the caucus needs to address at general convention.
So there's a lot of work to be done in February at the general convention, where we will not only elect officers from deputy leader straight on down through the slate, but we will also have a number of important constitutional amendments that need to be made to update the Constitution to make it relevant to today's times, to ensure that we are in tune with modern governance and the wishes of the Bahamian people today. We also have to develop the vision and strategy for the party for the next 2 years to ensure that vision is aligned with the Bahamian people and the challenges that we face today, and to develop the detailed strategies to ensure that we again put before the Bahamian people practical solutions to the issues that we face.
The party suffered a crushing defeat at the polls in September, which saw it win only 7 seats in the lower chambers. Subsequently, the party's trustee called for the removal of Prime Minister and Member of Parliament for Killarney, Dr. Hubert Minnis, as leader. The former East Grand Bahama MP says that he and fellow FNMs are committed to supporting whomever is elected as leader. There has to be a national discussion on the issue of marital rape, reflecting the public's true feelings. This coming from Press Secretary in the Office of the Prime Minister, Clint Watson, this week when asked if the Davis-led administration would address the hot-button topic in its legislative agenda. You see, last week, Prime Minister Davis tweeted, "Marital rape is wrong. We remain one of the few countries in the world where that is not recognized in the law." The Prime Minister added that an effort to change the law should be part of a larger national discussion, and he very much supports having that conversation.
Obviously, it's a social conversation that has to be had. What I mean by that is it needs to incorporate many other organizations like the church, civic groups, women's rights groups, marriage groups. It has to incorporate a national conversation. What you find happening is whenever governments put forth information or referendums on particular issues, sometimes we think it's going to go in a particular way, like the last one we had, and it didn't. You would think, oh, women's rights, oh yes, everybody wants that, and then we saw overwhelmingly people voted against it. And this has to be a conversation driven by the people, and that's what governments can have positions. You would have seen many persons in government have expressed outrage against it and has taken a support that they believe it should not happen or to be criminalized. But that's not enough. People in government expressing their views. It has to be a national conversation.
He adds that there's already laws on the books addressing sexual assault and abuse. This topic was brought back to life following a woman being ran over and beaten in the street by a man suspected to be her significant other. You're watching JCN News. Stay with us.